All right, guys, welcome to episode number 10. Going to give this longer form podcast thing a shot, as I've mentioned in some previous ones. Going to kind of develop here a little bit into a verse each day and kind of stay focused on that. We'll touch on some political topics and some cultural things of that nature, but we're going to try to kind of stick to this for a little bit and perhaps maybe alternate and just kind of see how it goes. I'm still feeling this whole thing out, so truthfully, I'm not sure where I'm going with it or how far it's going to go. Would love to get some guests and things of that nature, but just don't have all the infrastructure built out quite yet. So let's kick today off. We'll take a look here at 2 Peter 3:8 and just kind of talk about what this verse means, kind of where it could take you in life. Again, my purpose for doing these is to enrich and enlighten folks, whoever may need it, right? Because there was a time that I genuinely needed it and struggled to find it, and my hope is that if I can help somebody in need, that suffices my basically entire purpose for doing this, because that's this takes. Ultimately, I'd like to get into a rhythm of doing it daily, trying to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes talking about a particular Bible verse and how it can be interpreted. And again, if it helps somebody, that's my entire goal. So 2 Peter 3:8, but do not forget this one thing, dear friends, with the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. So how could that perhaps be interpreted, right? So I think that this speaks loudly to God's perspective on time, perhaps. We measure our time in minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, whatever, which creates perhaps a linear and limited understanding of our existence, right? Our existence is through Christ. Our existence goes on forever. Our soul goes on forever within Christ, right? If we accept Christ into our life, then we understand that God operates beyond the constraints of what we view as human time or earthly time. And I think the purpose of this particularly is to help us shift our mindset away from what we're so concentrated on the day-to-day, and put our trust in the divine timing of the Lord, as opposed to trying to control everything. I know that for the longest time in my life, I wanted to be in control of every little thing, and then I was taken to my knees, and that kind of has disappeared from me. I realize now I control nothing. Right? There's the old saying, we make plans and God laughs. It's really true that I think God laughs at perhaps the timing that we try to apply to our life. His view on time is much different, right? Like, we see things go by very, very quickly, where for God, his time is limitless. It's forever. He's constantly with us, as he's eternal, and he is existing outside of kind of the time that we perhaps see it. In Revelations 22:13, Peter encourages us to think like God. And I realize that's a different verse, but the Bible interconnects itself in so many different ways. I think Jordan Peterson had said that the Bible refers to itself some 65,000 times, that it kind of intertwines. So it's really a difficult read, that it's not something, you can't read the Bible like you read a novel. You have to read the Bible one verse at a time, one chapter at a time, one story at a time, and then kind of sit back and reflect on what that is teaching you. Because there's a story to it, right? Like, there's a greater purpose behind just the verse or just the story. Like it's teaching you a lesson, and I think that's what a lot of people miss. Like, and I know this was something I was missing from my life forever, and it really wasn't until I started studying the Bible and listening to lectures and listening to different points of view and trying to understand how to break those down into understanding kind of what they meant. And they can mean different things to different people, right? You have to be patient. You have to let God's plan unfold for you. I know that everything I've ever rushed in my life failed for a reason. Whereas everything that He is delayed and then put in my life in His timing has worked out as it should. And I'm talking about personal relationships. I'm talking about business dealings. I'm talking about finance. I'm talking about everything. Like, every time I tried to force something, everything would fall apart. Every time I step back and just let it come as it's meant to come, on God's timing and not mine, life seemed to get much less complicated, much more enjoyable, and became much more fulfilling. And understanding that some things would work and other things wouldn't, while you try to force everything that you want, it doesn't work that way. And I've watched people successfully force what they've wanted and then turned what could have been great into something terrible. And every kind of terrible experience that we have in our life, it leaves some form of imprint, I feel. And when that imprint gets disturbed or triggered and reminded, we have to now go back and rebattle that thing that we forced in our life. And then we start to rethink it. And then we let it start affecting the decisions that we make moving forward. And I think that is where we fail the hardest. Rather than letting it go, understanding it was God's timing, and saying, okay, I have to look at what's in front of me now, because this is what He's placed in my path, not what was back here, right? Because that happened already. We learn from it. But sometimes those events that we forced, or those things that we forced, they turned toxic. Right? And that lives within us. Choices we made, bad choices we made, choices that we made that we knew we shouldn't have made, that lives within us. And that creates anxiety, that creates depression, it creates a lot of things. And most people can't climb out of that until they face it. Like, you have to face it. You have to own it before you can move on from it. And for a lot of people, I feel like trauma transpires and they carry that with them day after day, rather than just saying, listen, I have to face this thing that went wrong in my life. I'm going to contend with it. I'm going to give it to the Lord, and I'm going to let it go, so that I can now accept what's coming to me in God's timing. That all changes very, very quickly, very, very efficiently when you allow it to. If you don't allow it to, because you keep fighting for whatever the bad decision was previously, or what you had forced previously, you're never going to be able to accept what's coming. Right? There's an old, when one door closes, another opens. Right? Let God close a door and let Him open another one. I genuinely believe that had I fought or continued to fight to open doors that kept closing, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be sitting here speaking to you, recording this today. In fact, I'd probably be in a grave if I wasn't here today. It'd be that simple. Like, my life wouldn't even exist had I just continued to force the bad choices that I made over and over and over again. God, there's a perspective to understand when it comes to God making you wait for something, right? It's a common human experience when we have to wait, and it's accompanied by doubt or frustration. But with Christ and with God in your heart and accepted in your life, that waiting period is never wasted, okay? Even if we look back at biblical figures like Abraham, Joseph, David, they all had to wait long periods of time for God's promises to kind of come to fruition, to come to pass for them. And if you read these stories, you understand that. There is suffering in the process of getting to where you want to be. Right? The whole concept, the whole burden of the cross is how much pressure can be applied to you without you buckling. Right? I mean, Abraham waited 25 years for Isaac. Right? Joseph endured many years of slavery and imprisonment before becoming the leader of Egypt. David waited years to become king after being anointed. I mean, all these things, all these people, all these stories inside the Bible, there was suffering and waiting. There was sacrifice and waiting to get to what God had planned for your life. I look at some of the biggest success stories out there, and I'm talking about founders, Colonel Sanders, KFC, Earl Thomas, the guy that founded Wendy's. I mean, those are food things, but Home Depot. I mean, we're talking about big stores, Walmart. All this stuff took time. It takes generations. It doesn't happen overnight, and most people don't reach a high level of success until much later in their life, because there's such great sacrifice that comes in the beginning to fulfill that journey that God has for you. Right? And as you fulfill that journey, you become more and more eligible to steward what God has for you. But there's lessons to be learned along the way, and all of that just takes time. Listen, we all want what we want when we want it. Just do. But if you're not willing to trust God's timing, you're never going to get it, because you're going to keep making wrong choices rather than just staying. I always tell people, stay focused on the will which you feel that God has placed upon you. Right? Things don't pop into our mind for no reason. Dreams don't transpire for no reason. Aspirations don't transpire for no reason. All of these things are placed upon you from the Lord. And you have to take them, process them, focus on them, and know that if He set it upon your heart, that He will take you to it. Right? There is nothing I have in my life today that I didn't at some point in my life dream of having. And there are things that I hope for my future that I dream of having. And sometimes I wake up and I'm like, how did I get here? How am I so blessed? And I look back 10, 15, 20 years ago and prayed that one day, hoped that one day, dreamed that one day I would live a blessed, fulfilled life. Now, a blessed, fulfilled life does not mean an easy life. A blessed, fulfilled life means a life of meaning, right? I mean, a meaningful life is a hard life. But I don't want an easy life. I want a challenge. When it's my time, I want to go to the grave still swinging. I really do. I just do. I don't want to ever feel like I have to take my foot off the gas. I always want to feel like there's something bigger and greater waiting for me. And I feel that way because it's what's placed upon me. Right? It's not just this magical dream. These things have come upon me because they've been bestowed upon me. These thoughts and dreams and aspirations. I look back at the things that I've accomplished and I'm like, I got to give that all to God, because it was all on His timing, not mine. Like, none of those things transpired the way I wanted them to. Transpired the way He wanted them to. So as I look into my future, I go, I gotta just trust in faith that Christ will take me to it, because He's bestowed it upon me, the thought, the will, the desire, the dream to have these things. Right? Like that is a divine feeling when somebody puts that upon you. And I have to always go back to, can I trust God's timing? And especially while I was much younger, right? I didn't want to trust God's timing. I wanted everything on my timing. Well, guess what, guys? That doesn't work. I'll be the first to tell you it does not work. Right? I think that this verse, in a way, serves as a way of encouragement, that when life seems like it's moving slow, or too slow, or slower than the pace you want it at, that we may feel like we're kind of in the waiting room for that next step. But it's not about rushing the process, it's about embracing the process. Because the process is the journey. The journey is the adventure in life. If you apply a maximal amount of responsibility upon yourself, the amount of adventure that you will experience, fulfilling the applied pressure to yourself, is the meaningful life that you will live. If you're willing to do that, if you're willing to continually apply that pressure, if you're willing to take everything as an adventure, you'll never hate a day, a minute, an hour of your life. Because you look at everything that's gone wrong, and you go, was I able to build upon it? I mean, for me, listen, everything went wrong, right? Laying in a hospital bed, waiting to die, everything went wrong. But it wasn't my time. And it wasn't my time because I didn't want it to be my time. I wanted it to be my time. I was miserable, right? Body shutting down, organs shutting down, felt terrible. I was like, God, take me. Don't put me through this. But on His timing, an uphill, hard, devastating adventure laid before me. I went through it. I think it changed. It reshaped me as a person. It reshaped me mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually. Changed everything. Changed everything. Like, I wish it didn't take that to get me to where I am today, but it did. But it did. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm glad it happened to me. I'm glad everything fell apart. Because if it didn't all fall apart, I would have never been able to bring it all back together. And I was able to, but I can't take credit for it. When I say I was able to, I just stayed on the path. Every night when I asked God not to wake me up the next morning, He woke me up. And it wasn't until many years of praying I wouldn't wake up to now waking up every day and thanking Him for letting me see a new day. Trust me, our timing was in totally different directions. Totally different directions. And today, I live each day on His timing. I take each adventure at His will for my life. Each difficult situation, each stumble, every fall, every failure, Every bump in the road is part of his journey for me. And it is for you too. And it doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make it easier. In fact, it makes it harder. And I always go back to the hoisting of the cross. And when I want to give up, when I want to quit, when I don't want to do it anymore, when I'm in pain, when I can't sleep, when I'm struggling with whatever I'm struggling with, I just pray for strength. Right? Pray for strength. Because Christ gave the ultimate sacrifice for our salvation. And I think that if we refer to a Bible verse every day, and I think if we break it down, and I think if we reflect on how it affects our own life, I think it helps us get through the hard stuff. Because the Holy Bible is the longest existing document in human history, right? One of the longest biblical, when I say biblical documents. And not enough people focus on it every day, right? For me to take 15, 20, 30 minutes and just focus on one verse, I mean, my goal is to do this every day. I'm a little bit behind on podcasts because my speaker in my computer went bad. My new one just arrived, so hopefully this is much more clear than the last handful of videos I put out. Unfortunately, had a little technical error there, a little setback, but it's okay, right? I think moving forward that we all have to look on the eternal perspective rather than this moment. While our life here is important and meaningful, it's just a small piece of God's eternal glory. Like, we have to view our challenges, our decisions, our lives, and our purpose and our patience in His clarity, not necessarily ours. And I think in doing that, it probably changes the way we focus on the hard stuff. Because listen, life is not meant to be easy. I will say that every day until I take my last breath. It's meant to be hard. It's meant to be truthful. It's meant to be meaningful. It's meant to be an adventure. And to maximize that. And I say this to men specifically. Young men. Because I wish somebody said this to me. The more pressure you can apply to yourself, the harder you're willing to work, the beating you're willing to take mentally, emotionally, physically, will carve you into the man you need to become. Okay? It is with great clarity that I can say that because I've lived it and experienced it. And if I could tell somebody, a younger version of me, one thing, it would be never take the pressure off. The more pressure I had on my life, the more adventure I experienced. Right? And that's where I'm getting back to at this point through the recovery process. Like, how do I apply more pressure to my life? Because the more pressure I apply, the more adventure I will have. The more adventure I will have, the more meaningful my life will be. I can just trade in the morning and sit back and do nothing for the rest of the day. I don't want to do that. Why? Because I don't believe that creates the maximum amount of meaningful adventure in my life. A lot of people don't want to talk about the Bible. A lot of people don't want to talk about Christianity. A lot of people want to stay away from these things because, there's this whole woke, crazy, anti-religious agenda going on, and I don't buy into any of that stuff. So if you can take something from this podcast, it's trust God's timing and trust God's plan for your life. Okay? Whatever that may be, His timing is never off. I can tell you that because I'm alive today because of His timing. And I wouldn't be had I denied his timing for my life. His way for us, his thoughts for us, his dreams for us are greater than ours will ever be for us. So to take a step back, understand God's nature, his mastery over time and eternity, and disconnect so much from how we are bound by days, weeks, and hours, and move according to his perfect eternal plan for you, is what will benefit you and your life, your family, your spouse, more than anything else. And I say that to men, women, children, elderly people, that it's irrelevant, that applies to each and every one of us. Right? I speak probably most directly to my younger self, because my younger self made so many mistakes. And I know that that's just part of the process. So when I say I speak to my younger self, I speak to a young man saying, hey, listen, you forced so many of the wrong things. And then when you stopped forcing and you just let God do his thing for your life, everything changed. Everything got better. Right? Not easier. Don't mistake better with easier. Don't mistake better with easier, because it's not easy. Right? His plan for your life is not easy. Maximal responsibility will lead you to maximal adventure, which will lead you to a maximal, meaningful life. The life you are made to live. I see so many people, they sit there on their phone all day long. And it drives me crazy. Do something with your life. I understand you're entertained by social media. Great. But when I see people, especially young kids, spend hours on their phone, there's so much more to see and do and experience, that if you would just follow the path that's been set forth for you, you will live an incredible life. Get out of the house, right? If you're in the house, do something meaningful. Read the Bible, read a book, do some self-help, do some meditation, do some praying, do some exercise. Great, do all those things. Take care of you. But also focus on letting God's will for your life transpire. Whatever that is. Whatever it is. When it comes to your relationships, your friendships, your career, your job, your business, your finances, whatever it is. Surrender it all to Christ and follow his lead. And let his timing transpire for you. And in doing so, the better life that you're seeking will then come to you. The things that you're forcing will disappear. I forced so many things in my life. So many things that I should have never forced. But first you must be young and dumb before you become old and wise. I'm sure there's much more wisdom for me to accrue, but I can tell you one thing. Don't force it. Follow God's timing. He will not set things upon your heart that he has not made meant for you. Let them come. They will. Be patient. Stay humble. Work hard. Apply the maximum responsibility you can to your life, and enjoy the adventure that comes with it. So I'll leave you with that. 2 Peter 3:8. Those are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, feel free to leave a comment below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more, And if you'd love to get in a conversation with me, always feel free to reach out. I'll put my contact information below. God bless, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day.